A teenage girl comes home from school. Her parents were at work and her siblings had soccer practice. She was alone in her house and she figured it'll be cool. She goes up to her bedroom and sees a note on her bed. She picks it up and it reads, "There is someone in the house." She crumples the note and says, "Very funny guys. What happened? You missed soccer practice." No one answers. She yells, "Hey, if I find you two here in my room again, you're dead." So she goes to the kitchen to get a snack. She opens the refrigerator and discovers another note. It says, "Your little sister and brother are at soccer practice." She drops the note and she says, "Hey guys, this is not funny anymore. Stop it." She goes to the front door and turns the knob. It's stuck. "Hey, what the?" she yells, and she tries opening the door by slamming into it and kicking it. The door is locked shut. She looks on the floor and notices another note. It says, "You're stuck. You ain't going nowhere." She screams and grabs her cell phone from her pocket. The battery is dead, so she runs to the living room and to get to the home phone. But the home phone is gone. There's another note. It says, "No cops, no phone, no way out." So she runs to the back door, trembling with fear. The back door is also locked shut. She screams. She notices another note. She reads it and says, "Look up." So she looks up and finds her dead cat speared through the ceiling with a kitchen knife. She screams in terror and runs to the nearest window. There's a note on the other side and it says, "I dare you to go outside." Terrified, she runs to the kitchen for a knife to defend herself. Nothing. The knives were all gone, only a note that says, "I don't think so." She runs to her bedroom and locks the door. She checks the closet and under the bed. Nobody there. She looks in her drawer for her cell phone charger, but instead finds a note that says, "I said no, thunking, phones." Then her TV turns on by itself. It's loud and static. She walks towards the TV and turns it off. She finds another note. It says, "I have the remote." She goes in panic. She yells and screams, "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" 10 minutes later, police arrive breaking into her front door. The cop searches in and out of the house but finds no one. As the detective were interviewing her, they notice a note attached to her back. It reads, "I was this close, but I saw the cops." Have you ever heard of Davy Crockett? He was a great hero and a brave man. He was born in the hills of Tennessee in 1786. He had 5 brothers and 3 sisters. They lived in a cabin made of logs from trees that had been chopped down, and the house only had 2 rooms. Their bathroom was outside. It was called an outhouse. Davy's shirt, pants, and shoes were all made from a deer. It was called buckskin, and his favorite hat was made of a raccoon. It was called a coonskin cap. Davy grew up learning to hunt at a very, very young age. His family needed him to help bring food home to Cat. When Davy was old enough, he was able to have a gun. He named his gun Old Betsy. It was a long rifle and was about 6 feet long. When Davy was 13 years old, his dad wanted him to go to school to learn to read and write, but Davy only went 4 days. There was a bully at his school that was older than he was, and the boy jumped on him and beat him up. So Davy didn't want to go back to school. His dad wanted him to go back, and he spanked him with a hickory switch. Davy ran away. Davy had to work very hard so that he could eat and have a place to live. It wasn't Casey being away from his mom and dad. One day he returned home, and everyone was glad to see him. When Davy grew up, he was one of the best hunters around. When he was nearly 20 years old, Davy got married and had a family. In 1813, he had to go fight the Indians, the War of 1812. His men were starving, and Davy went hunting and got all his men something to catch. Some years later, Davy went to Congress to make sure that Tennessee got to have a say in the government. He was what is called a representative because he represented the people in his state. In October of 1835, when Davy was 49 years old, he decided to go to Texas. Texas did not belong to the United States at that time. It belonged to Mexico. But Texas wanted to be free. So Davy and his men decided to help Texas. They went to a place in San Antonio called the Alamo, and there they went against Santa Anna, who was the one in charge of Mexico's army. Things looked very bad for those in the Alamo, and they were given a chance to run away. But Davy and his men decided to stay no matter what. They were killed there in the Alamo, but because of them, Texas became free. Texans will never forget the Alamo and those brave men like Davy Crockett who died there so they could be free. It seemed like the work would never end for Stephen. He was helping his brother and father in the yard. Each weekend there was something to do. Why they couldn't just sit inside and watch cartoons like all the other kids, he did not know. With a sigh, he pulled his rake a little harder and faster, hoping he might still get done in time for the last round of cartoons. After all, they'd already done so much. First, his older brother, Carl, had started cutting the grass with the lawnmower. Dad had used the weed eater to trim up around the house and the bushes. That had left him to walk the yard and stomp down mole trails so the mower wouldn't scalp the grass. Then he had to use the blower to blow off the driveway and the sidewalks. He couldn't complain much because he had the easier jobs. Then they'd had to do some more stuff. Carl had pulled weeds in the garden beds, while Dad had sprayed along the edges of the house for bugs. Stephen had to push the spreader, which threw grass fertilizer and ant killer crystals everywhere. He marched up and down the hills and through the front lot. He probably had the harder job this time, but he didn't like pulling weeds, and Dad didn't let him play much with the sprayer. Finally, Dad got out the hedge clippers. Dad was sculpting the bushes into nice shapes, while Carl and he both got out rakes. There were a few leaves here and there, and then there were spots where the grass grew faster, so grass clippings piled up. That didn't count the hedge clippings. They gathered all of this stuff into 4 or 5 piles, one per section of the yard, and then got a wheelbarrow. Dad was done then, so he pushed the wheelbarrow and helped them dump the yard waste in the compost pile at the back of the yard by the property line. It was done. Yard work was done for a week. It's a lot of hard work, and that didn't mention cleaning up the tools, sharpening the lawnmower blades, and the other jobs that came with keeping the yard clean. Dad didn't much like spending money on having someone else do his yard when he had 3 sets of hands that knew how and could do it. In that, Stephen understood in some cartoons. Important to work hard and save money, even if he missed. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. Share your stories and impressions in the comments, and maybe your story will become a masterpiece in one of our upcoming videos. Let's dive into the world of slimes and stories together.